Phil Mickelson plays golf for Saudi money now, and the PGA Tour era that made him a legend ended quieter than anyone noticed. Not with LIV, years earlier, inside his own team. For 25 years, one man read every putt, carried every bag, stood next to him for all 5 majors. Then that man was gone, and golf accepted the polite explanation without asking a single question. Here is what the polite explanation hid. His caddy fired him, not the other way around. And the reason comes down to money that went unpaid. A number that grew year after year until it passed $900,000. But the dollar figure is honestly the least shocking part of this story. Where the firing happened, what Phil was hiding at the time, why both men lied to your face about it, and what arrived at Bones Mackay's door weeks later, that's the bombshell, and almost nobody knows the full chain of events. By the end of this video, you will never look at this partnership the same way. I genuinely want your first reaction in the comments, and subscribe if you like golf stories with receipts. Now let's start where the cracks first appeared. The cracks trace back further than anyone wants to admit. So start in 1992 at the US Open, where a skinny 26-year-old bagman from Florida shook hands with a college kid out of Arizona State who had already won on the PGA Tour as an amateur. Fred Couples had nicknamed the caddy Bones 2 years earlier because he could never remember the tall guy's actual name. Jim McKay took the job expecting it might last a season or two. It lasted a quarter of a century, and it built one of the most decorated runs the sport has ever seen. 42 PGA Tour victories would eventually sit on Phil Mickelson's record, and Bones was on the bag for 41 of them. Every major counted him present. The Breakthrough Masters in 2004 after years of heartbreak, the PGA Championship in 2005, Green Jackets again in 2006 and 2010, and that impossible 6-iron off the pine straw mentality carrying all the way to a claret jug at Muirfield in 2013. 11 Ryder Cups, 11 President's Cups, 6 runner-up finishes at the US Open, each one a small heartbreak they absorbed together. Phil used to explain the relationship with a line that fans loved quoting. Bones, he said, was the only guy on the golf course who actually wanted him to play well, so why would he ever berate the man working his tail off for him? It sounded like wisdom. It sounded like loyalty. For a long time, it probably was both, and nothing proved it more than 2009, when Amy Mickelson was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the family's world stopped. Phil later told the story himself. The first people to show up at his door were Bones and his wife, Jen. Not agents, not sponsors, the caddy. Phil said that moment taught him something about what people need in dark times. You just show up. Remember that detail, because it makes everything that follows hurt more. These were not employer and employee. Their wives were best friends. Jen had been introduced to Bones through Amy, 2 families, 1 bag, and Bond Golf held up as proof that the game still had a soul. Underneath that beautiful surface, money was doing what money does. In 2007, the PGA Tour launched the FedEx Cup, a season-long points race with enormous bonus pools attached, and according to Alan Shipnuck's reporting in his Mickelson biography, Phil made his caddy a promise. A percentage of whatever bonus money he won would flow to Bones, the same way tournament earnings did. Caddies live on those percentages. The handshake economy of golf runs through them. Year after year, the book says, the FedEx money came in, and year after year, the caddy's share of it never arrived. 1 season became 5, 5 became 10. By Shipnuck's account, the unpaid total climbed toward $900,000, and Bones kept carrying the bag anyway, kept reading the putts, kept showing up at dawn to walk courses his boss would stroll onto hours later than promised. Why would a man earning $40 million a year fail to pay his own caddy? That question is where this story stops being about golf. Government auditors had already seen the answer, though the public would not learn it until 2022. During the federal investigation into gambler Billy Walters, the insider trading case that brushed dangerously close to Phil, documents were compiled on Mickelson's finances. Shipnuck's book, citing a source with access, to that material reported a staggering figure: more than $40 million in gambling losses between 2010 and 2014. Sit with that number. It roughly matched his entire estimated income across those same years. The smiling superstar signing autographs on 18, the thumbs-up icon with the private jet and the Rolex deal, and the KPMG hat was, by that math, treading water at best. He had used proceeds from a stock tip to settle a debt with Walters, the SEC alleged, and while Phil was never charged with wrongdoing, he was ordered to hand back the trading profits. Walters went to prison for 5 years, Phil went back to work, image intact, and the world moved on without connecting any dots. Bones did not have the luxury of moving on. He was inside the machine, watching it from a distance of 3 feet, and the book describes a man wearing down under an accumulation of small insults that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with respect. His yardage work got overruled, his course knowledge got waved off. Phil would tell him an arrival time and then drift in late, leaving his caddy standing on a range like hired help instead of a partner of 2 decades. Then there were the flags, a detail so petty and so human it might be the most revealing fact in this entire saga. Tradition gives the winning caddy the flag off the 18th hole. It is the one trophy a looper gets. Phil claimed the flags for himself every single time, originally for his grandfather's kitchen wall, a gesture Bones understood and respected. But the grandfather passed, and the wins kept coming. 20 more of them, 4 more majors, and the caddy never got to keep one. Not one flag in 25 years. By late 2016, Bones was 51 years old and had just come through surgery to replace both of his knees, the price of hauling a 40-pound bag across mountains of fairway for a living. A man takes inventory at a moment like that. He counts what his body has paid, and he counts what he has been paid, and per Shipnuck's reporting, the gap between those numbers had grown into something no friendship could carry. In the months that followed, the book says, Phil sent $400,000 toward the old FedEx debt, less than half of what Bones calculated he was owed. A partial payment after a decade of waiting did not read as an apology. It read as an appraisal of what the caddy's patience was worth. Spring arrived, the tour rolled into Jack Nicklaus's tournament in Dublin, Ohio, and the longest-serving caddy in professional golf walked into the week carrying a decision instead of a yardage book. What happened next stayed buried for 5 years. The Memorial Tournament, June 2017, that is where it happened. Not in a press release and not over a phone call, but face-to-face. And according to Shipnuck's book, the man who ended golf's most famous partnership was the one holding the bag. Bones fired Phil. Absorb how backwards that sentence runs against everything you assumed. Caddies get fired. That is the natural order of the sport. The punchline of 100 tour stories. Superstars do not get dismissed by their employees, yet somewhere on the grounds of Muirfield Village, a caddy with 2 artificial knees and 900,000 reasons looked at a 5-time major champion and resigned the most prestigious job in his profession. There was no shouting match for the cameras, no storm off caught on a phone. The 2 men simply agreed to keep it quiet, and golf, incredibly, noticed nothing. What followed might be the strangest 3 weeks in the sport's modern history. The U.S. Open arrived at Erin Hills, and Phil chose to skip it. His daughter, Amanda, was graduating, and fatherhood won, a decision the golf press wrote up as classic family first Mickelson. Here is what nobody knew. Bones traveled to Wisconsin anyway and walked the course, charting yardages for a man who was no longer his boss, on the slim chance a weather delay might let Phil fly in and make his tee time. A fired man doing free scouting work out of pure professionalism. If you want to understand who Jim Mackay is, that image tells you more than any statement ever could. The delay never came. Phil never played. And on June 20th, 2017, 2 carefully worded announcements landed and the great lie went public. Mutual, the statements said. Phil's version praised Bones as one of the most knowledgeable and dedicated caddies in the world and insisted the decision was not based on a single incident. Technically true if you consider a decade of grievances to be many incidents rather than one. Bones answered with pure class, wishing Phil nothing but the best and promising to be among the first to congratulate him when he won again, even predicting a Masters. Golf swallowed the story whole. Jordan Spieth told reporters he was shocked. Rory McIlroy offered the gentler take, saying every player-caddy relationship runs its course, and the two were surely still best of friends. Fellow caddy John Wood later described the feeling across the tour perfectly. It was like watching your parents split up. Nobody suspected the divorce papers had been served weeks earlier, or that the warmth in those press releases was a negotiated performance. The reason both men lied is almost sadder than the lie itself. Per Shipnuck, Phil got to save face. The icon could not be seen as the guy fired by his own caddy over unpaid debts. Bones got a clean exit that protected his future, keeping doors open in broadcasting and on other bags without the stink of a public money fight. The caddy code of silence did the rest. Both men benefited, and only the truth took the loss. Then a package showed up at the Mackay home in Scottsdale, and this is the detail that will live in golf lore forever. Phil had overnighted the second $400,000 payment, finally closing out the FedEx debt by Shipnuck's account, and with the check came 4 flags: the 2005 PGA, the 2006 and 2010 Masters, the 2013 Open. The keepsakes Bones had waited 25 years to touch, delivered at last. Each one arrived covered in an enormous Phil Mickelson signature, sprawled so large across the fabric that Bones reportedly felt the mementos were ruined, transformed from a caddy's earned treasure into autographed merchandise. The book says he has never displayed them and intends to someday sell them for charity. A quarter-century of service settled by courier. Whatever you think of either man, that image, 4 defaced flags in a Scottsdale closet, is the true ending of golf's most beloved partnership. Except both men kept living, and the parallel paths they walked afterward turn this from gossip into something close to poetry. Bones went to the NBC and Golf Channel broadcast booth, where audiences discovered the sharpest course mind in golf had been hiding on Phil's bag all along. In September 2021, he returned to caddying for Justin Thomas, and within 8 months they won the PGA Championship together, a 6th major for Bones, the first without Phil, and the walk up the final hole hit every golf fan who knew the backstory right in the chest. Phil wrote his own stunning chapter first, winning the 2021 PGA Championship at Kiowa at age 50 with his brother Tim on the bag, the oldest major champion in history, mobbed by crowds in a scene nobody will forget. Within a year, that goodwill was traded away. His incendiary comments about the Saudi backers of LIV Golf, delivered in a twist you could not script to Alan Shipnuck himself, detonated his standing, and he resurfaced as Levy's $200 million man, the price tag suddenly making sense to anyone who remembered the $40 million in gambling losses. Phil claims for the record that he overpaid Bones by $1 million more than any caddy in the game has ever received. Bones has never responded, never confirmed, never sold his story. 9 years of silence from the one man who knows everything. Maybe that silence is loyalty's last surviving piece. Maybe it is the most expensive dignity in golf. Either way, you now know what the press releases buried. So tell me in the comments, after 25 years, was Bones right to walk? Or did Phil's $1 million defense change your mind? Pick a side, drop it below, and if stories like this are your thing, subscribing is the one way to make sure you never miss the next one. This has been the real story of golf's quietest firing. Thanks for watching to the end.